which tells you that you're being recorded.
Cool. Ready?
Oh, all right.
Okay. Hey, everybody. Welcome to the first episode of the Teachers Talkin podcast. We are absolutely just beyond excited and thrilled to be here and to have you here listening or watching along with us. My name is Dustin, and I have been in education for 18 years. I have taught I teach out of Chicago, but I've also taught in South Central Los Angeles, and I've taught on the south and west sides of Chicago. I have taught in traditional public school, a private school, Catholic school, and then public charter schools, where I have mostly been working with highly diverse students in really impoverished and neighborhoods that don't get a lot of help and support. And so that's been kind of like my life work. And I teach in high school. So I've been teaching high school for the most part, all grade levels in high school, English language arts. And now I'm actually teaching in a one-to-one school where I'm working with high schoolers and elementary school students. So that's super exciting. And within my 18 years, I also spent 8 years as a teacher, coach, and assistant principal. So I come just kind of like a whole wide variety of experience in education. How about you, Gahzali?
Oh, wow. Okay. So I've been a teacher for 25 years and I've been teaching in Singapore, a sunny island, a small little place.
Damn.
But I think we are known for our education system. Yeah. How this is where I've been for the past 25 years, and I've been to almost I think 6 schools. So if you do your math, I move every 5 years. Yeah, because I like I guess that's how I last so long in teaching, because I like to see what it's like in different places. I've never seen two schools which are alike. So different schools have different strengths, different weaknesses, different environment, culture, people, So that's why I tend to move from one place to another to see, and I last this long in teaching because of that. Yeah.
You know,
And
I love hearing that you've moved around.
mm,
I had a principal who's my mentor, who once told me that it's really important for us to make some kind of a change every 5 to 7 years. So whether that was like changing schools or changing position within a school, or having some level of change in your life like every 5 to 7 years, he said that that was just something that helps to keep us refreshed and going. And it sounds like that's exactly what you have found as you've kind of jumped around.
yeah, a little known fact in Singapore, the principals have to move every 5 to 7 years. So that is a compulsory thing. I made it compulsory for myself. Yeah, because I get bored easily, I guess. Yeah. So another thing about me, I'm probably ADHD. So that's why I move around from school to school. Yeah. So how did we meet, Dustin? Do you still remember?
Absolutely. Like we met on LinkedIn and we like kind of
Yeah.
hit it off immediately.
Yeah. Yeah. And we started messaging. And then I found out a bit about him. The interesting thing is that he actually has a brother who is in Singapore.
Yep.
Yeah. So that was interesting. And I thought, oh, what a small world. And
Yeah.
when we hit it off, I realized that, oh, okay, so this is another person who's been in teaching just as long as I've been, and he's got so much experiences. Um, then I broached the topic of, I would love to do a podcast one day. And he said, yeah, that's something that he had in mind as well. And then it just, clicked, why don't we do something together? So
Yeah.
it's less scary, right, Dustin? So, when we can actually uh, make use of each other's strengths and start something together. It's good collaboration.
Yeah, it really is. And it was so interesting that when we first started just messaging on LinkedIn, that we just had so much in common when it came to passion for education. And just in the back of both of our heads, we had been thinking about like wanting to do a podcast. Like I have so much that I want to say about education that I can't get it out fast enough through content and newsletters and all of the things. Like I really just want to reach so many educators out there and collaborate with as many educators as possible. So it was just such a perfect kind of like connection for the two of us.
Exactly. And Dustin, why don't you introduce to our listeners what our focus will be for our podcast?
Yeah, absolutely. So this podcast, obviously it's called Teachers Talkin because that's how we met. We were just two teachers who were talking. And that's what this podcast is designed to do, is simply be not just the two of us talking, but eventually bringing teachers in from around the world to talk with us and just discuss topics of education. So this podcast is really designed for teachers, educators, parents, anybody who's, quite frankly, anybody who's interested in education. This podcast will be for you. We're going to be just discussing all things education and teaching, from anything from innovative teaching methods and challenges to strategies that can be used in the classroom, or strategies to help balance work-life, have better work-life balance, sustainability, and things like that. I know in the United States, we're having a huge teacher shortage problem, and just teaching in general has been very, very difficult for us over here. I would love to know what that looks like for you over in Singapore.
That's very interesting. I was just talking about this topic. I realized that there's a growing teacher crisis in the world. It's not just in the US, in England as well, and I also know about it in Australia. Yeah, there are teacher shortages. There was a strike recently in Korea, yeah, because of certain things that happen to teachers in the classroom, parents' involvement, and all that. So it seems like it's getting pretty bad out there. Yeah, so I'm quite surprised that, or rather, I'm amazed that we do not have that issue here in Singapore yet. So I'm trying to figure out why, you know. So what's
Yeah.
the cause of this, right? Yeah,
Yeah, and
so
hopefully
that's
that's one
something
of the
that we can
topics that
discuss.
we can talk about.
Yeah,
Yeah, we bring
yeah,
other people in and talk about the different educational crises that are happening around the world, because we all
mm,
know that education is critical. Like, we absolutely must have it, but it's
yeah,
the landscape of it is changing so dramatically, and it's been
mm,
changing ever since the pandemic. We've just, nothing has been the same ever since. And so it seems like nobody has really found their footing on how to get back on track. And
mm,
so many schools are just turning back to what they were doing before the pandemic. And if
yeah,
we've learned anything since then, it's that those methods just simply don't work anymore.
exactly. Yeah, and we are seeing teachers leaving the profession in droves. So yeah, that's not good. That's why
Yeah.
for our podcast, the topics that we will be covering will be things to do with innovative teaching methods, ed tech trends, DEI, parent communication and involvement, student voice and agency, and the latest things that's happening in the world of education. I think that will be pretty exciting. But don't worry, it won't just be the two of us. We plan to bring other people on board as well. Yeah.
Yeah, and we also want to know, like, what do our listeners want us to talk about? Like, we have a list of topics that we're prepared to talk about over the course of time, but we really want to know what's happening in your world, and what topics do you want us to discuss, and what topics do you want us to bring other teachers in? And hey, maybe you're a teacher who would like to be a guest sometime and talk about a hot topic, something that you're dealing with, something that's going well for you, or even just a challenge that you're having. So I think that one of the cool things about doing this is there are just things all over the place that people are struggling with, and as teachers, we love to talk. So we want to make this really like more of a roundtable and a discussion of educators to talk about education. And hopefully through this, people can find ways of getting some support, and hopefully people can take away some of what we talk about and apply it directly in their own classrooms and their own situations.
Totally agree with you. Yeah. So, what would you say are your passions in education, or what brought you into this?
you know I have a lot of passion for education. You could probably tell just by this conversation, but for me, it started with like, I'm one of 3 children. I'm the oldest, but my mom has 12 brothers and sisters. So I'm actually the 7th oldest of 75 first grandchildren. So for me, I never wanted to be a teacher. Like I wanted to do other things with my life. And it wasn't until about midway through college that I kind of looked back on my life and reflected and was like, every single aspect of my life, I'm teaching somebody in some way, shape, or form, whether it was from babysitting while I was younger to my job working at a hardware store where like I trained in every department, and then just as a part-time employee I was training other employees, to getting into my fraternity and teaching the history of our fraternity to other people. Like just every aspect of my life has been teaching. And so that's kind of how I got into it. And as I got into my 4th year in my 3rd school, or my 5th year in my 3rd school, that's kind of when I had my principal see leadership in me that I hadn't seen in myself. And I had an opportunity to become a co-department head. And that just kind of like kicked things off for me as I began a slight transition from the classroom to administration, something I thought I would never do. But I found that I really enjoyed working with teachers because I wanted to have an impact on as many students as I possibly could. And so I started to recognize that I could only impact the students who were in front of me. But as I became more of a leader and started working with teachers, I recognized that I was now impacting the students who were in front of me and the teachers who were in front of me. And by impacting those teachers, I was impacting their students. And so fast forward 18 years later, and I decided that what I really wanted to do was stop only having an impact in a single location. And that's why I started my teacher coaching business, because I really want to just have a legacy of helping education and supporting educators and teachers to do really great things, to be able to impact their students in phenomenal ways. So that's kind of where I come from in this. And like, I could talk about teaching strategies in education all day long, every day. And I like can't get it out fast enough, which is just why this is such a great place for me. But what brings you to this podcast, and like what's your passion when it comes to education?
Okay, a bit about my background. I'm a 3rd generation teacher. So my mother was a teacher, my grandparents were teachers, and so here I am. I'm a teacher. I've only been teaching all my life. I'm a professional teacher. Of course, when I was younger, I would did part-time work, in factories and McDonald's and the things that we used to do. But as a professional, I've always been a teacher. So that's where my that's in my DNA, I suppose. Yeah. So why am I here? Because I realized I've been doing teaching most of the time, and I'm in the classroom and I'm with my students. And sometimes you get pretty lonely, being a teacher, right? You're just in your classroom with your kids. That's it. Yeah. And then I realized, oh, maybe you can call it midlife crisis. I realized I needed to do something more, because um, if you count down, I've been teaching for nearly 30 years. So how many more years do I have? Maybe at most 10. So what have I left behind? Let's say if I stop teaching today. So I'm thinking more about legacy now. So I've decided, just like what Dustin said, I need to have a wider impact, and I can also multiply myself. In other words, I can impact more students if I can help other teachers. Yeah. So that's when I started looking for opportunities, platforms to talk. So I've been invited to talk in conferences. I've done sharings in conferences. I get invited to go to schools to talk to the teachers, to basically motivate them or tell them what I'm doing in my classrooms. Um, and for me, I like to look at the latest cutting edge technology that teachers are using in the classroom. So I'm currently fixated with AI in education. Yeah, so I think that is where our education landscape is changing very quickly, and AI is the newest, latest thing that is coming into education, and I want
But
to be there
Gahzali,
and
so many
also help other
teachers
people.
So sorry, I don't mean to cut you off, but Gonzali, so
No,
many teachers are saying that like AI is bad and like we should stay away from it. So you seriously telling me that's something we should be talking about and we should be using AI as teachers?
of course. I wouldn't be here talking about it if it was bad. Yeah. So I mean, if you look at it, it's just a tool. So it's how you use it. I mean, if you don't use it properly, it could be bad, just like any other tools that you use in the classroom. Yeah. But I can seriously say, it's because of AI. Like I like your shirt, by the way. Your shirt which says that you're a teacher and that's your superpower. I'm a
Yep.
teacher. Yeah, my superpower is AI. So AI has 10x my productivity, or 10 times made my productivity 10 times more. And well, I shan't reveal all the secrets, but I'm sure we will have a chapter where we talk about it in one of our podcasts, and then you
Yeah,
will see everything that
we
you need to know about AI and how to use it as your teacher superpower in the classroom.
we
Yeah,
can't give away all of our tips and tricks in
exactly.
the
No, no,
very
no, no.
first episode. We are just introducing the podcast after all.
Yes, exactly. So, if you like what you see and you want to know more, do subscribe to the podcast. You can leave your reviews, connect with us on social media. I am on LinkedIn solely. Dustin is on LinkedIn, and I think he also has a YouTube channel. Yeah, and subscribe to him. Dustin, you want to say more about your YouTube channel?
Yeah, you can find my YouTube channel at the Teacher Tutor LLC. So this podcast will go there. I am also just mostly active on LinkedIn, but you can also find me on like Instagram and TikTok and Facebook at the same handle at the Teacher Tutor LLC. That YouTube channel actually also has instructional videos that teachers can use in the classroom. So a little plug. But yeah, mostly you can find me here on LinkedIn, and I just would love to continue connecting with more educators and continuing this conversation, beyond this podcast and beyond other content. So
Awesome. So, thank you, everybody. We are both excited on this journey that we just started. I hope you will join us, and let's learn together. And Dustin, your last words?
thanks for everybody listening. Really look forward to you coming back. Our next podcast will be 2 weeks from today. It will drop bi-weekly on Mondays.
Awesome. See you then. Bye bye.
Thanks, Gahzali. Have a good one.